This is it, Madeline. Just breathe. Why are you so nervous? Just a few words Madeline says to herself as she pulls up to the dead end where there's only a broken sign. Beyond this point, she must travel on foot through the difficult and slippery terrain just to get to the base of Mount Celeste. Just as her journey begins, a small crow appears ever so curiously on the top of a small cliff. As Madeline approaches the bird, making a swift jump to climb the cliff, the crow starts to fly away, seemingly leading her to a small house where she sees an elderly woman standing outside. "Excuse me, ma'am," she says to the older woman as she approaches. "The sign out front is busted. Is this the mountain trail?"
"You're almost there. It's just across the bridge."
As Madeline walks by, she mentions to the elderly woman that she should call someone about her driveway, and mentions how the bridge nearly collapsed on her way in. The elderly woman begins to chuckle.
"If my driveway nearly did you in, the mountain might be a bit much for you."
Unamused, Madeline quickly responds, "Well, if an old bat like you can survive up here, I think I'll be fine." Just before Madeline walks away, the old woman warns her that Celeste Mountains is a strange place and she might see things she's not ready to see. With an annoyed look, Madeline scoffs at the warning and tells the old woman that she should seek help. Madeline continues past the woman, with only the sounds of her laughter in the background as she heads towards the base of Mount Celeste. "You can do this," she whispers to herself. Madeline makes her way through the forsaken city that lies at the base of the mountain. Eventually she comes across a bright-eyed young traveler as he sits by a warm fire where he had set up camp for the evening. He greets Madeline as she passes through in excitement to see another person on the mountain. Even though Madeline has a look of hesitation in her eye, she does reply back with a timid, "Hi." The young man tries to create some small talk, talking about how the mountain is crazy and how he can't believe it exists. She responds with a discerning look on her face, saying that the mountains aren't the easiest thing to climb, but she guesses that's what she was looking for. Just after that, the man introduces himself as Theo. With his cheeky grin, he mentions that he comes from a far-off land, hoping to get a chuckle out of Madeline. Not really sure with what to say back, she just glances back at him and says nothing. After a brief pause, she speaks up and apologizes. She introduces herself as Madeline, and just tells him she has a lot on her mind at the moment. With a smirk on his face, he tells her, "You came to the right place. I couldn't imagine a better place for some self-reflection." As their conversation continues, Theo asks her if she plans on heading back soon, because the terrain gets pretty tricky ahead. With a mask of determination, she tells him that she's going to reach the summit. In turn, Theo says, "I can see the determination in your eyes. It's inspiring." All of a sudden, after hearing that, she casts a shadow of doubt on herself, possibly second-guessing her decisions. With that, she changes the conversation back to Theo, hoping to take the attention off herself. After a bit more conversating between the two, talking about the old ruins and Theo's Instapic account, Madeline makes her way through the slippery city until she reaches an old headstone that is nearly 3 times her own height. It reads, "Celeste Mountain. This memorial is dedicated to those who perished on the climb." Exhausted, Madeline manages to get a small fire started and lies down amongst her stuff. As a familiar crow flies down and finds perch on her head, Madeline just says to herself, "This might have been a mistake." She manages to find rest for the evening. Seemingly after a night's rest, Madeline wakes up and continues her trek up the mountain. Only something seems off. As she looks around, it still appears to be dark and is illuminated by a now green flame of the fire that she made earlier. In the night sky, it appears to be falling stars, and as she attempts to read the memorial, the letters seem scrambled and don't make any sense. Out of confusion, Madeline starts to make her way through the rest of this section of the mountain. Although not too far in, Madeline comes across an out-of-place, yet decently sized mirror inside the strange caverns. Exploring the room, she walks past some mirrors, seeing herself out of the corner of her eye, only she looks slightly different. Doubling back to the mirror, she looks intently at herself. Instead of her bright orange hair, it's more slightly purple, and her eyes have a red glow to them. Her clothes are dark purple and her skin almost a sickly pale. At that moment of realization, the glass begins to crack, and with the blink of an eye, the dark mysterious version that she was looking at in the mirror appears right in front of her, then immediately turns around and runs out of the cavern. Continuing on, slightly disturbed by what she just witnessed, finding her way upward past where she had originally started, she comes across the same, slightly creepier version of herself. Her mirrored self speaks out, "Madeline, darling, slow down." Even more disturbed, Madeline quickly responds with asking who she was. "Oh, I'm simply a concerned observer," she responds, and just after that, her eyes flicker a brighter red and she lifts herself into the air, now floating above Madeline. Madeline asks, "Are you me?" "I'm part of you," she replies. "I can't tell what a relief it is to finally get out of that head of yours. But look, I'm worried about us. We need a hobby, but this?" Madeline interrupts her. "I know it's crazy, but I need to climb this mountain." The dark version of herself starts to chuckle a little. "You are many things, darling, but you're not a mountain climber." Struck down and laughed at by this person who resembles herself, Madeline quietly asks with a look of doubt in her eyes, "Who says I can't be?" "I know it's not your strong suit, but be reasonable for once. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. You can't handle this." Seemingly annoyed by this, Madeline glares back and says, "That's exactly why I need to do this. Are you the weak part of me, or the lazy?" "I'm the pragmatic part, and I'm trying to be diplomatic here," as she cocks her head to the side. "Let's go home. Together." Shaking her head at the thought of turning back, Madeline attempts to flee, not wanting to give in to this dark reflection of herself and give up on what she came here to accomplish. She notices as she's leaving, the dark version of herself starts to give chase, attempting to convince Madeline to turn back. But determined, Madeline pushes through and manages to escape her dark reflection. As she continues forward, she reaches an info booth with a payphone next to it. As she slowly approaches, she notices the phone is actually ringing. She takes a quick look around, not really knowing what else to do. She answers the phone. "Hello?" The female voice on the other side replies. "Madeline? Are you calling from a payphone?" Confused, Madeline responds, "Yeah. No, wait. You called me." The voice replies and asks her what she's talking about. "It doesn't matter. I'm in trouble. I'm being chased by someone. I don't really understand what's going on, but I know I'm in danger," Madeline says, slightly more panicked. The woman tells her that Madeline only calls her when she's panicking in the middle of the night, and that she doesn't have to make up some ridiculous story just to get her attention. From panic to frustration, Madeline lashes back. "I'm not making this up. You always do this." The woman hushes Madeline in an attempt to calm her down. She tells her that she's sorry and to talk to her. At this point, Madeline starts to recap what just happened. She explains to the woman that she's climbing Celeste Mountain and found a mirror and it shattered and a part of her escaped. And at this moment it all clicks. "I'm dreaming, aren't I?" The voice speaks up again. "Madeline, of course you're dreaming. I haven't spoken to you in months. Why would I start now?" Frustrated, Madeline starts questioning herself even more, wondering why she's even trying to climb this stupid mountain. Out of the darkness, a similar dark entity returns, floating and laughing to herself. "I'm wondering the same thing," she says. "It's time to give up and go home." Then as quickly as she appears, she vanishes. Now, the light post begins to shift. It grows a couple eyes, a mouth, and then transforms into a giant purple beast that slams down to consume Madeline. Immediately, she wakes up from this nightmare to a cold night, bright stars, and a warm fire that is dimly lighting her surroundings. Disturbed by the nightmare, Madeline decides to walk further through the caverns that she dreamt about the night before. Not finding the same mirror, but instead she sees a familiar face. Theo, who set up camp a little higher up the mountain. He greets her, happy to see that she's made it up here. Climbing up here was tough, but totally worth it. Just look at all these ruins. I took so many great pictures. Want to see? As he pulls out his phone and starts showing Madeline. They go on back and forth, making a bit of small talk and taking a selfie together. Theo breaks off from the photography talk to ask Madeline, "So you're determined to climb the entire mountain?" Eagerly, Madeline responds, "Yeah, I told myself I would." And with a slightly more intense look on her face, she says, "I'm done breaking promises to myself." After their conversation, Madeline leaves to further on ahead through the familiar landscape as her dream, possibly seeking something she saw in it. And just like her dream, there it was, the info booth with the payphone next to it. Although this time the phone is silent. She slowly approaches the phone, picks it up, and dials a number. It rings once, twice, and then the third ring someone picks up. "Hello?" the voice says. "Hey, Mom," Madeline answers. "Madeline, what a nice surprise," her mother says with excitement. "How's your trip?" Hesitantly she answers, "It's okay, I'm just kind of overwhelmed." "Oh no, are you having another panic attack?" "Focus on your breathing, honey, I'm here," her mother says with a concerned voice. "What's going on?" Realizing that the idea that she had, that her mother was resentful for months without speaking to her, was just a fear that initialized in Madeline's own head, realized by the nightmare that she had the night earlier. Madeline finds the courage to face her fear and to call her mother, but instead of anger and disappointment, her mother is delighted to hear the sound of her daughter's voice again. And Madeline is happy to hear a comforting voice who understands her, someone who can comfort her in a time of stress and anxiety. And with that, Madeline begins what she came to the mountain to do. But this is just the beginning of her struggle with herself and her travels up Mount Celeste.